Mr. Vice Chair, we live.
Thank you so much. Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the regular meeting of the Baldwin Park Planning Commission for October 11th, 2023 at 7:02 p.m. Commissioner Gonzalez, would you please lead us in the flag salute?
Yes, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and put your right hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated.
All right. Thank you so much. Planning clerk, will you please do a roll call, please?
Thank you, Vice Chair. Chair Jen Escobosa. Vice Chair Eric Pena.
Present.
Commissioner Mario Maciel Jr.
Here.
Commissioner Roman Rodriguez.
Present.
And Commissioner Stephanie Gonzalez.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank
I'd like
you.
to make a motion to excuse Chair Spinoza.
Is there a second?
I second.
Planning clerk, roll call, please.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Vice Chair Eric Pena.
Yes.
Commissioner Mario Maciel Jr.
Yes.
Commissioner Roman Rodriguez.
Yes.
Commissioner Stephanie Gonzalez.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great, thank you. Now on just to the next item on the agenda, I'd like to now declare public communications open. So anyone wishing to address the commission on anything other than the items listed on the agenda may come to the podium. We will be restricting your comments to 3 minutes. So if there's anyone, please go up to the podium. And do we have anyone online? Okay. Seeing no further interest, I now declare public communications closed. The next item on the consent calendar is the meeting minutes from the previous Planning Commission meeting. Is there any commissioner that would like to pull this item for discussion? If not, I will ask if there is a motion to approve the minutes from the September 13th, 2023 meeting on the consent calendar.
I'll motion to approve the consent calendar as is.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Vice Chair Eric Pena.
Yes.
Commissioner Mario Maciel Jr.
Yes.
Commissioner Roman Rodriguez.
Yes.
And Commissioner Stephanie Gonzalez.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. On to the next item on the agenda. It's our only case being considered today is CP 2307. The request is for consideration of the conditional use permit for a warehousing use within the enclosed building located within the industrial zone for the address at 4730 Little John Street. And then I'll call on just to the staff if you can begin your report.
Hello?
Okay, awesome.
Can you go back one slide, Mark? Thank you. Good evening, Honorable Chair and members of the Commission. Next slide. Before you is conditional use permit CP 23-07 to allow for the operation of a warehouse for storage and distribution of clothing products within an existing industrial building located in the I industrial zone. Next slide. The subject property is located east of Little John Street and south of Brooks Drive at 4730 Little John Street. The subject site is approximately 65,360 square feet, roughly 1.5 acres of lot area. The property is currently improved with 3 detached tilt-up industrial buildings, wherein the applicant is intending to occupy only the building located to the east of the property near the existing utility tower shown in the red box on the map on screen. Surrounding the property are other industrial buildings and similar uses, and located east of the property are existing single-family homes. Further to the west of the property is the Interstate 605 freeway. Next slide, please. The applicant, American Metal Holdings, Inc., is proposing to use the existing 16,133 square foot industrial building on the property as a warehouse for the storage of clothing products such as women's clothing, footwear, and garment accessories within the enclosed building. Shown on the current slide is the existing site plan for the property. There are no exterior alterations or changes being proposed to the existing industrial building as a part of this application. Next slide, please. The proposed warehouse will require minor interior tenant improvements. As shown on the expanded floor plan, the facility will install storage racks to allow for individual packages of clothing products to be stored for ease in sorting and distribution. All other areas within the enclosed building are identified to be used as office spaces, lobby areas, or restrooms. On the slide, the dark gray/black squares on the site plan are the location of where the storage racks are going to be. Next slide, please. Shown on the current slide is a photograph illustrating how individual articles of clothing would be stored within the enclosed building on storage racks, which is similar to how other industrial and warehousing uses store their products. Next slide, please. The current slide shows the on-site photographs taken by the applicant. As previously mentioned, there are no proposed additions or alterations to the exterior of the existing industrial building. Likewise, as noted in the applicant's operation plan, enclosed as attachment 3 of this item's agenda packet, the applicant is proposing to store clothing products within the enclosed building, wherein all merchandise is sold online and delivered directly to clients, similar to other wholesale businesses. Shipments will be delivered to and from the facility via delivery trucks, wherein the applicant anticipates on average there to be 2 or 3 deliveries taking place within a given week, with no more than 1 delivery truck offloading or shipping products from the facility at any given time. Based on these statements, conditions of approval have been included in the enclosed resolution that limit the number of delivery trucks present at the facility, as well as prohibit the outdoor storage of products and/or pallets within the subject property to avoid any potential impacts on surrounding properties. Next slide, please. A notice of public hearing was published in the local newspaper on September 28th, 2023. Additional public notices were also mailed to property owners and occupants that live within 300 feet of the project site on that same date. To date, staff has received 1 written public comment from a concerned citizen objecting to the proposed application. Copies of this written public comment have been provided to each member of this commission for the record. No other verbal or written public comment was received. With respect to the project's review under the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, the project is categorically exempt from further environmental review as it falls under the category of projects noted in section 15332, class 32, referred to as infill development of the CEQA guidelines. A notice of exemption for this project will be filed with the Los Angeles County Clerk's Office. Next slide. In conclusion, staff does recommend that the Planning Commission approve Resolution PC 23-19, approving CP 23-07. Both planning staff and the project applicant are available for any questions regarding the project. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for that presentation. So I'll now open it up for the commissioners to see if there's any questions for our planning staff regarding this proposal. I have a few questions. So I understand that there aren't any active business licenses on file for the subject property. Can you, again, maybe this is a question for the applicant, but as part of kind of the review process, are folks automatically apply for the business license during this process?
So typically when a project goes through entitlement review, they'll have to get the entitlement approved before they can file for any licenses or plan checks for tenant improvements. So if the commission chooses to approve the project, they'll have to go through a 10-day appeal period. And after that appeal period, if the project hasn't been appealed, they will then be allowed to file for licenses.
Is there a process by the city where they just ensure that they do get a business license before kind of the last step?
So aside from conditions of approval that each entitlement will have that usually last I want to look at the resolution here. I think it's a year for a project to undertake any plan checks or a file for any licenses. The other follow-up that we would have is if this project is, let's say, associated with a code case, code enforcement staff would proactively go to the property and check with the property owner to see if, hey, have you filed the license?
Okay.
So there is that other mechanism, but typically there is a time limit of at least of no more than a year before they can file for an extension.
Thank you. The other question I had is, I know in the letter that we received in opposition, I know within kind of just sort of that industrial zone, that there's sort of constant light pollution during the review for the residential neighbors. During the review of this proposal, was that taken into consideration?
So as mentioned in the presentation, there are no exterior improvements proposed as a part of the project. I will say that we did speak with code enforcement staff as far as any ongoing nuisance cases, and there haven't been any nuisance cases on the property for glare specifically. But what we can do if the commission so chooses is add a condition of approval that specifically addresses glare. And then, of course, there is the standards in the development standards in the zoning code that specifically address glare that all projects have to meet regardless.
So whether it's in the resolution or not, they still need to be addressing the glare. Is that right?
That's
Which
correct.
Contributes to light pollution.
That's correct.
Okay.
And if they don't, they risk going through a code violation where they'll
course.
have to address it anyway.
And then as far as noise pollution, I know it kind of in just doing sort of a history or check of kind of just sort of nuisance or issues that have occurred. Has that happened at least within the history of this property, or perhaps nearby industrial properties?
So for this property in particular, there are no active code cases, and previous code cases related to illegal operation. But that was addressed a couple months ago.
Okay.
Other than that, there haven't been any other active or ongoing code cases on the property related to noise, glare, any other nuisances.
Not that you or any of the staff would just know the answer to this question, but I mean, looking at the letter, it just seems again that there has been kind of noise pollution, light pollution, and even kind of just sort of a strong scent just to the residential neighbors. I'm kind of just wondering if that's an outlier, or I mean, for the individual to take the time just to email the city staff, I'm kind of just wondering.
Sure.
Yeah.
I would defer to City Planner Nick Baldwin or Community Development Director Ron Garcia for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I might add that it is possible that the responding party may have been addressing a nearby tenant or a nearby unit, not necessarily this one, but they maybe had the issue with a nearby tenant, and they're giving an example that
Gotcha.
maybe they don't want those impacts. So that's one possibility. If it's the desire of the planning commission, we could add a condition of approval that restricts the parking area adjacent to the residential properties to parking alone, and that would kind of preemptively address loitering, smoking in those areas, or even offloading, which was also mentioned in the letter.
Thank you. But my understanding is that even with kind of the conditions that sort of the department has set as far as having kind of, because again, they're kind of addressing from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. Kind of these long box trailers, or at least transferring items, but it just seems that the mechanisms from 8:30 to 5, the glare, addressing the glare, et cetera, it seems like, again, if they do abide by it, then there really shouldn't be any issues to the residential neighbors.
Of course, and I would like to add, just for the commission's knowledge, the operations plan included in the agenda packet. The applicant does state that their business hours are from 8 to 5
Okay.
or during the daytime. So ideally, the concern that the commenter had regarding this particular business, as far as glare, should be a non-factor since they wouldn't be operating during evening hours anyway.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I guess in the near future, Mr. Edward Flores, I know that the individual that wrote this letter email in opposition to this proposal, they can always call code enforcement or the department just to do some further investigation, address any issues that go outside of what the resolution states, or hopefully that the
Of
planning
course.
commission approves. Thank you. Are there any additional questions from the commissioners to the staff?
I had two questions. The first one is, I think back in 2014, the CPU was brought to the table,
Yes.
and I'm just a little bit confused why it's being brought back again.
Correct. So for warehousing uses, they're listed in the industrial section of the code as conditionally permitted. So what that means is they require a CUP on the property. And whenever a business that has a CUP grants it to them, if there's no activity within 180 days, which is 6 months of, like, let's say a business being filed or there being like intent to take over the business, they lose that vested right and they'd have to reapply for a CUP, which is what happened in this instance.
Okay. And then my second question was, I know it's a property that has 2 other buildings.
Mhm.
Do the 2 other buildings receive merchandise or trucking of 18-wheelers coming through there?
For that, I can have the applicant provide more of a response, or the property owner, with respect to what the other businesses engage with for.
Okay.
But my understanding is they operate in a similar manner.
Thank you.
I just wanted to comment. I know that there's a possibility that we can restrict the parking if possible, that we had talked about. That's something that, if we can consider doing.
Nick, do you mind again repeating and elaborating a little bit more about the parking, or at least amendment to the resolution?
Right. So one possible condition of approval that you may add or may consider adding would be to restrict the parking area adjacent to the residential properties to parking alone. And it would be, and then you could also add that it would be expressly prohibited to use this area for smoking, loitering, or unloading of vehicles.
Oh, Mark, can we go to the presentation and where the map is? Should be slide 3. There we go. Mark, are you able to zoom into the aerial photo?
I just think it's something to consider. So that way, if, the previous public comment, if it happens again, we can ensure that we put something in place to avoid that.
Absolutely, I'm not opposed to it. Yep. Are there any additional questions to city staff? From the commission? Hearing none, I'll now declare a public hearing open. So we'll go on to public, the public hearing itself. I'll just check with the audience to see if there's anyone wishing to speak on this matter, either for or against, we'll first call the applicant to speak, and then after that, we'll follow those in favor and then those against. And then after, if there's any opposition, the applicant may speak again to rebut any opposition. So as a friendly reminder to all the speakers, please state your name and address once you step up to the podium. So I'd like to call for the applicant first to see if they'd like to speak on the matter. Sir, if you can just state your name, and then you'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Michael Straight. I am a real estate broker and I represent the owner of the property, Mr. Larry Auding and Auding Enterprises.
Would you like to speak on
So,
the issue in favor?
Well,
or in
I
general?
don't have anything specific to say about the use permit. However, I would like to have the aerial photograph brought up because there was a issue brought up about parking and lights on the adjacent residential neighborhood. And I'd like to point something out that wasn't mentioned.
Sure.
If we could bring that back
course.
up again.
Looks like we're bringing it up right now.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
I'd like that blown up if you could, please, like you did before. Okay, what I'd like to point out is on the east side of the building, you'll see that there is a parking area. You'll also see there's a vegetation barrier, and then there's a space between that vegetation barrier, another vegetation barrier, and the fences for the residential units. So those residential units are highly protected from any parking or lights or anything else that would take place on the property. So there was discussion about restricting the parking there. When the building was built, it was required to have those parking spaces. So I would assume that it would be required for us to be able to use them. And that's what I see about that particular situation. I think my time's about up. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. So at this point, I'll open it up to anyone on the audience speaking in favor of the resolution. Okay. And then I'll move on to those against for the resolution. And then for those, again, on the issue of those against, I will just like to point that we did receive a written opposition, and that will be included in the record. And then just going back to the applicant, have you had the opportunity to address every argument for or against your application? If not, I'd like to invite you to speak further on it. Sure. So I think we're just stating that if there's any additional things that you'd like to address to the commission, just based off of what we've spoken. All right. Thank you so much. All right. Seeing no further interest, I now declare the public hearing closed. I'm going to open it up now to any discussion for the commission. So I know that the individual representing the applicant mentioned about parking. According to what we just heard, it seems like they're not sure. I want to use the word entitled, but I believe part of that they have access to that parking that we are considering perhaps restricting. I just want to kind of get the department's feedback on that.
Right. I think it's important to clarify that they wouldn't, there's no discussion about restricting anyone from parking in that area. So I think it was the proposed language that that I mentioned earlier.
Forgive me, for parking alone.
Yeah, it was for parking alone, and it was restricting other use from that area, including loitering, smoking, and offloading of delivery vehicles.
I had one comment
Of course.
to make, as I'm looking at a map that I have. And I do believe that the adjacent building behind their building is the one that's, were actually two buildings. They're almost side by side, that were for applicants that had applied for cannabis manufacturing. So the marijuana smell that I think Mr. Edward is speaking of, more than likely is coming from neighboring buildings and not parking lot or employees that are parking in that area.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah. I hate to take away the parking when it's, to me, it seems like that's not the issue. The issue is the smell coming from the other two buildings. That's just the comment I wanted to make, right?
Are there any other discussion points from the commission? If there isn't any additional discussion from the commission, I will accept a motion as is, or I know we've also been considering the motion with the amendment to add the condition of approval to restrict parking area on the adjacent residential properties to residential parking only, and then restricting smoking, loitering, and unloading of vehicles.
Vice Chair, just had one more question in regards to the operating hours. I know they put in a statement of justification stating that their hours are from 8:30 to 5:30. And in any case that is violated, what is done? What can be done?
So if we put those hours into the condition of approval like we've done, then they're bound by those as they are any of the other conditions. Violation of a condition of approval can have consequences. Repeated offenses. We could recommend that the resolution be called back before the planning commission for consideration.
Okay. All right, no further questions.
So is there, I will accept a motion and or even the motion with the proposed amendment. So we can accept the motion as is for the resolution, or we also accept a motion with the amendment that we discussed.
So if the commission wants to add those conditions of approval of either restricting parking area on the adjacent residential properties to only residential parking, that's one of the proposed conditions, or to restrict the use for smoking, loitering, and unloading of vehicles. If you want to do either of the two recommended conditions of approval, you would motion to amend the resolution to add the condition of approval, and then you would all vote on whether you want to add that condition or not. But you would go about that procedurally by saying, I motion to amend the resolution to add, and then you say the condition of approval or conditions of approval, and then you would all vote on whether you want to go forward with that.
If I may, there's a clarification on that added condition of approval. The suggested phrasing I have would be the parking area adjacent to the residential properties shall be used for parking only. material unloading, loitering and smoking are expressly prohibited within this area.
So I motion to
Amend.
amend the following conditions or the conditions mentioned.
I'll second it.
Roll call, please.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Vice Chair Eric Pena,
Yes.
Commissioner Mario Maciel Jr.,
Yes.
Commissioner Roman Rodriguez,
Yes.
and Commissioner Stephanie Gonzalez.
Yes.
Motion passes.
And now can I get a motion to approve the resolution as amended?
I motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Roll call, please.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Vice Chair Eric Pena,
Yes.
Commissioner Mario Maciel Jr.,
Yes.
Commissioner Roman Rodriguez,
Yes.
and Commissioner Stephanie Gonzalez.
Yes.
Thank you.
The motion carries.
Motion carried.
Just continue. So I'd like just to state that the Planning Commission has voted to find the proposed project exempt from the environmental review under the California Environmental Quality Act. Since thank you. Specifically, the project is categorically exempt from CEQA under the guidelines of section 15332 class 32 infill development. And as well as the has voted to also to adopt the resolution PC 2319 approving 23-07, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Baldwin Park approving a conditional use permit for a warehouse use within an enclosed building within the industrial zone. So we'll go on to the next item for reports of officers. Are there any reports?
Sorry. Yes, I'd like to, well, I guess I'd like just to mention to specify that tonight's decision was subject to a 10-day appeal period. So we'll put, that's the first order of business. And then I also wanted to mention we will be having a planning commission at the October 25th meeting. We do have an item. So love to see you guys there for that. And also, go ahead.
Okay.
Ron's got one additional announcement to make.
Thank you, Nick. Vice Chair and members of the commission, it's with a heavy heart that we're announcing that Esther Washington, this is her last planning commission meeting. She'll be leaving us.
Thank you for that report or reports. I'll go on just to the next for the item for commission staff, commissioners and staff communications.
If I may, I want to say, Ms. Washington, it breaks my heart to hear you're leaving us. The countless years that we've been working together. Very honorable person that you are. You're very close to my heart of all your hard work that you've done in the city, and it's not going to go unnoticed.
Thank you.
So wherever you go, Ms. Washington, we follow you.
Okay.
I'm with you. Thank you so much.
I usually am not at a loss for words, as you all well know. But I want to say thank you to each and every one of you, those that are here tonight and those who can hear beyond these walls. I really appreciate the opportunity to work with each and every one of you. I'm only a phone call away if there's a need. But I would love to see this city move forward. I love this little city. I call it my little city. So I have great expectations. And if you need anything, just let me know. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ms. Washington. Just echoing Commissioner Maciel, I know that you've been always so proactive with the commission as well as with the city and our communities. And again, we will certainly be missing your support and your leadership, but we all wish you the best in your next adventure. And I know that all of us are only a phone call away. And I hope that you'll come to our summer street fair when you get a chance, when time permits, because I know that's always a really great time for all of us here at the city as well as our community. So just please don't forget the city of Baldwin Park. No, thank you so much.
I'd like to echo those comments as a fellow municipal employee. I know it's always a tough decision, but I know that whoever gets you, they're going to get a gem. So the short time that I've been working with you, I see your professionalism and your dedication, and I wish we had a little bit longer time to spend with each other, but congratulations on your new endeavors.
Are there any additional comments in general for or communication from the commission? Okay. If there are no further comments by the commission, I will accept a motion for adjournment.
I'll motion to adjourn.
There a second?
I'll second.
Then for final roll call,
Final roll call.
Ms. Washington,
Thank you. Vice Chair Eric Pena,
yes.
Commissioner Mario Maciel Jr.,
Yes.
Commissioner Roman Rodriguez,
Yes.
and Commissioner Stephanie Gonzalez.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Motion
Washington.
passes.
Thank you, Ms. Washington. We are adjourned at 7:40 p.m. Thank you so much, everyone, and good evening.